Hi everyone, I'm Heidi Jorgensen Murray, and I live on Wicklow Drive in West Irondequoit, and we've lived here a little over 25 years now. And this is my garden. When I started here there was very little, and so it's grown with me. So this is the front bed that I just put in a little while ago, a couple of years ago, to display my flowers, and I keep these in over the winter, and then I bring them out when the weather gets to the point where they can handle it. And then I have a collection of kitties that I have that I'm interested in. I don't have a cat anymore, but I love them. And this is my favorite ground cover over here. This is St. John's wort, and I started with only 4 plants, and now it's taken over, so it keeps the weeds out of here. And later in the summer it has gorgeous, gorgeous bright yellow flowers on it. Right now it's just coming awake. And over here is my viburnum, which has a few flowers on it around the other side because that's where the sun gets it. They have a wonderful fragrance to them. And up here is the rhododendron that was planted here long before we came, and it's a little the worse for wear. It's probably over 60, 70 years old now, but there will be flowers there soon. So we'll be waiting for them. And this is a flowering quince. You don't see too many of those. My neighbor's was there long before this one, and this one's a little shoot from it. And I just love the color of it. It's a little different. So now we can move over to my other bed over here. This has been around a little bit longer. This is my Kusa dogwood, which I just put in about 3-4 years ago, and that starts to flower. It flowers every other year. And as I said, this is a flower bed that's been here for quite a while. The main part of it is being the clematis, and eventually that takes up the whole fence. It also goes all over the post, and the light just barely shows through it. It gets so thick. So I'm very proud of it, and it only flowers late in the summer and into the autumn. It's not one of the early ones, and just teeny weeny little white flowers go on there. So that's kind of my pride and joy. So now we can go out back and see what the backyard is like. Before we go into the backyard, I can't pass my porch here without having people look at this. This is one of my favorite places. It's always shady here, so in the summer when it's really, really hot and I don't want to be out in the sun, I sit out here, and even though I'm not a coffee drinker, I sit out here with my iced tea or my ice cream and I read. And it's my favorite place because I can see what's going on out front, and yet I'm private back in here. So I have a lot of my plants out here, as you can see, and it's just a wonderful place to be. Now we can go out to the back if you're ready. Welcome to my backyard. Now come around with me and see what we have back here. I have lots of ground cover, as you can see, and that's what keeps out the weeds. And I have tons of ferns, which are all over. We started with 7, and now I probably have close to 700 of them. And there's another flowering quince here, which is a seedling from one out front. We have sweet woodruff here, and lots of forget-me-nots, and of course the wild violets. And eventually the lily of the valley will be blooming, which it isn't yet, but it will be. You don't want to plant a lot of that because it takes over. So this is my shady spot back in here, so that I can come back here when I want to be in the shade. And these are all shade plants. And then I have a deck that I can sit on over here if I want sun. So I can be any place I want to, and that's why I love summer. So I'm glad you were able to see my garden, and I hope you like it as much as I do. Thanks for looking.
Welcome to the corner of Winona and Leland. I'm Chris Doran, D-O-R-A-N. Some of you may have remembered my dad. He was the principal at West Irondequoit back in the 60s and 70s. Delighted to have you in my home, at my yard. Please feel free to use this bench anytime you need a rest or just would like to sit and take in all of the beauty of our neighborhood. Behind me are some pretty spectacular rhododendron. I cannot take credit for them. The owners of this home must have put them in about 80 or 90 years ago, so just enjoy. And feel free to stop at any time and look at all of the other significant pieces of nature that were placed here by previous owners. Why don't we go to what I call a friendship garden? When I moved to Massachusetts in '73, no one bought anything to put in their garden. You'd just go to somebody's house and say, hey, I really like your daisies. When you split them, could I have some? So let's go to my friendship garden. And here we are at my friendship garden. For instance, this beautiful clematis came from Ogdensburg on Black Lake, my friend Beth. And as we go into this part of the garden, you'll see some stunning iris, and the iris are from a neighbor on Winona. I also love my coral bells. My coral bells started in my grandmother's house on East Ferry Street in Buffalo in 1930. They went with my parents to West Valley, to Cortland, to Irondequoit, to Massachusetts, to Ohio, back to Rochester, down to Honeoye Falls, over to Catalpa, to Syracuse, and now they rest here on Leland Avenue. I also have some pretty stunning allium, and I believe those are complements of our chipmunks and squirrels. Let's head over to what I call the lower 40, where we started with the rhododendron is the point, and now we go to the lower 40. And this is one of my most favorite places, particularly late at night, to lie down and watch the stars and the moon. It's also a wonderful place where I have willow that have grown from the red sticks I put in my Christmas planters. They rooted and now they're a significant piece of the garden. All of my ferns have come from my next door neighbor, and this beautiful variegated willow here is pretty showy this time of year. All the bushes you see behind me, they came from St. Regis Falls, they came from Black Lake, they came from a variety of friends where they didn't want the bush anymore, and so it now is in my garden. I'm very blessed. This is an oasis for me, and I hope you will find it to be so for you as well. Take care.
Welcome to 142 Chestnut Hill Drive. I'm Larry.
And I'm Karen.
Young D'Angelo, and we're going to take in a little tour of our garden. We're going to start off first with some of the plantings here. One is relative to the rocks that we have, which are actually dolomite, that we've placed hens and chicks rather in, and very colorful, and it's something that we've been doing even at our last house with the hens and chicks and rocks. As we proceed over here to the east side is a burning bush hedge, which really pops in the fall, and right in the center of our garden is, in our lawn rather, is a Japanese lionhead maple. In front of me right now is a Japanese black maple, and being a novice, what I'm attempting to do is create clouds with the various ends of the branches, and it's a process of pruning the candles, which pop up probably in April, to create the breadth of those clouds. And as I said, I'm a rookie at this, but it has a nice look to it. Up above the pergola is wisteria, and we've missed the color. That was about 4 or 5 weeks ago. But it is very brilliant, and it's one of the things I really love to prune. I'm joking though. But as we proceed forward here, once again, some more hens and chicks. This is over here to my left is a Japanese white maple, and what we attempt to do with this is wire it up as in bonsai, but I'm using that term very loosely, but once again to spread the trails out, if you will. The grass you see here is called black mondo. We inherited some of this. It's a running type of grass, and outside of purchasing others as well as taking some of the runners out, we've have it all through our property. In front of me is the water element. It's called in Japanese Asishi Adoshi, and what that translates to is deer scarer. It's also used in Zen gardens, which this is not, but every time it bangs or clicks or taps, it's intended to bring you back to the present moment. With our monkey mind, we're all over the place, but in a Zen garden you want to be peaceful and relaxed and centered, and that has a tendency to redirect you back to that present moment. At this point, what we're going to do is go to the left side of the driveway, the west side of the driveway, and take you through some of the plantings there. Here we are on the west side of the property, where our Japanese red maple that been attempting over the last few years to shape into more of an umbrella configuration. More of the black mondo grass, dwarf zebra grass here, sage. Black eyed Susans are getting ready to pop. These are the three sisters here are pencil hollies. Some more of the dwarf zebra grass, and here we have 2 lotus plants with 1 bud ready to pop. Unfortunately, the buds last about as long as peonies, but they are very beautiful. Moving along, more grasses. We have 2 green giant abrevieties, various hostas. This is called a monkey puzzle. It's found predominantly in Chile, in central Chile, and in Argentina. It's normally something we overwinter. We planted it last year. We had a mild winter and it made it. As we proceed forward now, we have the hydrangeas that are popping, as well as a different style of, just different type of hosta, which is a curly fry hosta. And now we'll proceed into the backyard then to tour, starting with our koi pond. We have 3 koi. Cascading down is creeping jenny, which we have dispersed throughout the patio itself. Over to our right here are various dwarfed hollies, not hollies, excuse me, dwarf hostas and other dwarf plants. This is a Cucursa Japanese dogwood, very, very fragrant, and it's just started to pop about 2 or 3 days ago. Right here we have a Japanese weeping pine, and we have rhododendrons and hostas and painted ferns, ostrich ferns. Here we have wild ginger. And proceeding down to the back of the yard, various ground coverings, as well as forsythia and Rosa Sharon. And this pretty much takes us to the end of our little journey here. And we'd like to thank you for visiting our garden, and everybody stay well.
Hi, my name is Nancy Perea. Welcome to my backyard. This is my garden, and I'm going to show you around. Thank you. We're going to start here under my gazebo. We've got some coreopsis here that are the yellow flowers. Then we have some sundrops here that are the brighter yellow. And then here is a nice little pot of sedum along with purple heuchera. And okay. Now over here we have more heucheras, one of my favorite plants for pots, and some beautiful pops of carnations. And the same over here, just a different variety of heuchera, and along with some violets, and again the carnations. Of course we have the ever-present hostas, but they definitely like the shade, so I try to keep them more to the back of the gazebo. Now come around this way and watch your step. We have more hostas, a beautiful Japanese fern. The whole area of the gazebo I do net because I have deer in my area. So, well, that's one of the things you have to have to do is come up with strategies to deal with the deer. Over here, we're mid-July, and the coneflowers are just coming into bloom, so that's wonderful. I'm glad today isn't too bright, so they probably pop the color really nicely in a little bit of overcast. And down below we have a pot of sedum, and the deer don't seem to bother that too much. The coneflower I do kind of have to spray to keep the deer from getting into, but that's a little sacrifice I think to make for coneflowers. Over here on the other side of the yard, I have an abundance of hydrangeas. I love my hydrangeas, and they've done a glorious job this year. They've got beautiful blue blooms. They've been already in bloom for about 2 weeks, and they're just spectacular, and I'm so glad it rained. Okay, now moving further to the back, we have daisies that are sprinkled throughout my yard. I have several areas that I have the daisies planted because they give such a great pop of brightness to the yard. Okay, now here in a little further back in my backyard, this is a garden I started last fall. And so I took out all the grass and basically brought every hydrangea and spirea and other plants that I could find to kind of populate this area of the yard, and it's done quite well. We've got a little bit of a St. John's wort here and some other things that are coming on, and hopefully they'll keep going, you know, throughout the rest of the season. I think we're doing good so far. And now let's move to my front yard. So here we are in my front yard, and I've got an abundance of black-eyed Susans that pretty much volunteered here. And behind the black-eyed Susans I've got a hosta that's huge and is doing well even though it's pretty sunny up here. Then I have more hydrangeas that enjoy being up in the sun, and they turn a lovely burgundy on the leaves even as we near the fall and get into the cooler temperatures. Then further on this garden, there's more of the sundrops, but they've kind of gone ahead and the blooms have been gone. And we have penstemon, which I think complements the other plants really well here because it's got this kind of a purple white flower when it's in bloom, and now they've moved on to producing their seed heads. Beautiful plant. And on this side of the garden, or this side of the yard, we've got beautiful purple salvia, more of the penstemon, coneflower that's just come into bloom, and a Rosa Sharon that's got some buds on it, but it hasn't come out into bloom yet. When it does, it's got kind of a white outer flower with a pink center, so it's kind of a deeper red center, and it's very beautiful. So that's kind of it in the front garden.
Thank you for...
Oh, and thank you for coming to my yard.
Hi, I'm Joe Taddeo.
I'm Lisa. This is our garden at 130 Satcham Way. In front here we have dwarf tomato plants that actually grow to be full size. We started them from seed in like March, put them under grow lights, and then when they're ready to plant, which is probably mid to late May, they go in these containers, and they're really good for containers. They don't get to be more than, say, 4 feet tall, but they do grow full-size tomatoes. This is supposed to be a container variety. Supposedly does well in containers. It's not doing that well, but there are some tomatoes on it. And this is a cherry tomato that our neighbor brought seeds back from Italy, and we planted it, and it's more bushy than tall, and there are a few little tomatoes starting on it, but they really do stay the size of cherries. They don't get large at all. This is a half barrel that we took the eyes of potatoes, I believe, right, Joe? Is that how you did it?
I saved the potatoes and left them in the garage in a bag, and then they got eyes. And then I took half the dirt out of here, and I've been filling it with dirt. and they just grew from potatoes.
They grew from potatoes. Good old Wegmans potatoes. This little guy here is a jalapeno that we broke in half, but it's coming back to life. We have 4 eggplant. This is a Japanese variety. It's called Camo, and I grew that from seed in the basement, and it's doing really well. It's not as tall. It stays sort of short and bushy, but it's a really good producer. There's probably 4 on that plant and a couple on this one. These I bought, actually. I didn't start these from seed, and they're just starting, so they're a little later in the game. This is a Rosa Bianca. That's an Italian eggplant. Then we have peppers that I did start from seed, and they're
the elephant ears?
I've got one called elephant ear, which is a very large and sort of flat pepper, and the other one is a Najareno pepper that is has some heat, and you can see it's starting to grow over there. And so that's what I have for peppers. In the middle, we have an overabundance of green beans that you're supposed to thin them, but we neglected to do that. So they're flowing over. And on the trellis are probably 2 cucumber plants.
Should we go up that?
And we have a garden out. We also have a fig tree right here.
Fig tree that I'm very proud of.
This was a little guy a few years back, and it needs to be trimmed and
it's
piled.
Figs.
Oh yeah, look, you can see the little
you can
figs.
see the figs coming.
Right here. Yeah.
It's a project to keep this thing alive and growing because it doesn't like the winter, but
right.
Bury it with leaves.
But it's working out. So we'll go in the back. We've got more growing.
So I'm kind of proud of my kukutsa plant here. This is actually an edible gourd.
Yeah.
And it's from Sicily. And they grow maybe 3 feet long or longer, and it's like a squash, only it's firmer, has a little better taste, and you can make a stew out of it. And it's kind of hard to grow because the plants don't pollinate very easily. But this year it's doing very well, and like I said,
they get really wide too. They don't stay skinny like that. They get wide and long.
Yeah. So I've got quite a few, and sometimes they get real curly. If you trellis them, they'll grow pretty straight, but when they grow on the ground, they'll be crooked. When we first made the garden, it used to come out to where the vine is, and then I took the garden out for a while, but I left this one particular grapevine because it produces really nice grapes. They're white seedless grapes, and if the birds don't eat them all, they're very tasty.
Then we can enjoy them, right.
So that's a battle to keep the birds out. And
this is garlic that was started right around Halloween, put right in the ground, overwintered, and here we are.
It's ready to pick.
Just about ready to pick. So and these are called garlic scapes.
And when they stand straight, generally the garlic is ready. Okay.
All right, let's move on to our tomatoes here. So these are not tomatoes you're going to find in a store. These are all grown from seed, and they're heirlooms. So this is called Polaris, and I actually got this from a Canadian grower because you know, you never know what kind of a summer we're going to have. So I thought maybe if we were on the cooler side, they would come in well, but we're having a really warm summer, which is not really good for tomatoes, even though people think so, because it makes the blossoms fall off. The pollen gets really sticky and the blossoms fall off, so that they don't grow.
You don't get a lot,
but when it cools down, it'll come back. So this is a Spanish. This is called Morado de Fatero tomato. This is a really beautiful hardy plant. Unfortunately, it's not the best producer, but there are some tomatoes. We'll see how. I've never grown them before, so we'll see how this works out.
You can see how thick the stem is.
Yeah, it's got a really thick, healthy
like
stem.
Like a tree. There's some nice tomatoes.
And there are some tomatoes in there.
There's some right in there.
This is a later variety. This comes in about after 90 days, so probably not till the end of August, but with the way things are heating up, probably sooner. And then these are Brandywine tomatoes, a pink Brandywine, an Amish type tomato. We start that from seed. They're delicious.
They're hard to grow.
They're a little hard to grow. They almost always get blight, which they're getting, even though I'm, you know, trying to be on it all the time. But it just always happens. You really can't avoid it. And this is a German variety. This is called Yoder's German, and I've got tomatoes inside here. There's some down here. There's some in the middle, and over here. This is like a gold orange type tomato. Big, juicy, delicious. And these are new. I haven't tried any of these yet, but they're coming along. And this is my Italian type inside. We can go in if you'd like. These are tomatoes that are all from Italy, all grown from seed. They're going to be sauce mostly. So I cook these down. This is actually an interesting. That's called a Mayona. And the reason it's called Mayona is because, well, as the legend goes, a man who was selling them was asked what type of tomato it is, and because he had broken Italian English, he said, they're Mayona. No kidding. So I've got 3 Mayonas, but they do make fabulous sauce. And these are San Marzanos.
And those seeds are from Italy.
And these seeds are also from Italy. They're not the San Marzanos you're going to get at Home Depot. These get humongous, very heavy. They're sort of dry rather than juicy, very few seeds, and they make a fabulous sauce. In fact, all of these do.
We want to thank everybody for viewing our garden. We're going to have lots of tomatoes, and maybe we can share them with you sometime. Have a nice day, and see you soon.
Hi, I'm Matthew Mann. My wife and I live here on Chapel Hill Drive, and welcome to our gardens. So we have a lot of variety of different plants here. When we moved in about 4 years ago, we had a very mature garden. So I just think of myself as kind of a caretaker, and I've tried to add my little touches and move things around here and there. But right about mid-May or early June, the thing that you'll notice along the walkway is the peonies, and they're just finished blooming within the last month or so. So now what's really eye-catching is the hydrangeas. So I love the hydrangeas because they get these beautiful blooms, and they can be all different varieties. These ones here, this beautiful pink, but depending on the acidity of your soil, you can get blue or you can get purple, all different colors. And you'll see those sprinkled throughout the landscape here in front and in back. We also have a lot of great trees. You see the towering pines, and we have here a dwarf red Japanese maple, which I love. And in the fall, it gets to be a beautiful bright red, which complements the Unimus, which also in the fall turns this bright red. And I love it because when you turn the corner onto Chapel Hill Drive, the first thing that you see in the fall is that bright red, beautiful Unimus. People might know it more commonly as burning bush. So we have a lot of things up here, but let's go in the back and take a look around there as well. So this is one of my favorite parts of the garden. Coming here into the side gate here, we have this beautiful, serene transition from the front of the house that everybody sees to this really peaceful area that goes into the back. And here we have more hydrangeas with the beautiful pink blooms. We've got some nice hostas, some astilbe. We've got some lily of the valley, pachysandra, some Solomon seal, and it's just a nice variety of different things, from ground cover and greenery to these little pops of color here and there. So let's take a look at the rest of the backyard. So we're here in the backyard, and it's one of my favorite spots because, like I said, it's just so peaceful. You hear the cicadas this time of year and the birds chirping. And we have, you know, the nice rhododendron and the azalea, which will be blooming beautiful pink and purple blooms in the springtime. We're already starting to see them bud for next year. We have more hostas. There's so many varieties of hostas, and I love them. I don't do a lot of annuals, but I add some pops of color here and there. So we have the New Guinea impatiens, and we go right up here. There's a lot of the great trees. So we have the full-size Japanese maple. This is the red Japanese maple. I have another one over here. This is another favorite tree of mine. This is the Kuza dogwood, and it just has a beautiful leaf, and in the spring you'll get a very distinctive white flower. And then we have these great stone steps which go up into the rest of the yard. We have some nice evergreens and some daylilies which should be sending up some blooms pretty soon. More peonies. Lots of great ground cover. You'll see tons and tons of pachysandra almost as far as the eye can see. It's a great ground cover that just helps to keep the area free from weeds and adds some nice interest. There's really something at all times of year, all seasons. You have some color sprinkled throughout, some interesting leaves and greenery throughout the yard. And so that's one of the things I love about this area, is you have that mature garden, you have a lot of variety. We also have a little garden along the back of the house with some rose bushes and some more hostas, some echinacea and salvia and different things. So what I try to do is have a thematic through line throughout the garden. You'll see similar types of species throughout the gardens, and so there is that continuity, but then there's also interesting little showpieces that you'll come across and will stop your eye for a moment and just make you reflect and enjoy the beauty of the natural world around you.
Hi, welcome to our garden. I'm John Parker.
And I'm Rosemary Parker.
This is our garden at 36 Leland Road. We put in this garden, none of it was here, it was all lawn. We had our driveway our sidewalk that used to go up to our door, and I took that out and added all this dirt from the garage in the back. We lost our Crimson King. We had a maple here, and we kind of let the stump and worked it into the garden space. We put some color in the front for people to enjoy. Some nice colorful things like snapdragon, Spanish needles, polka dot plant. Here's some coxcomb for some other color. And we got a lot of hostas, a lot of things that are easy to take care of. And Rosemary made that pot there.
Yeah, that's just some annuals. I usually put petunias, nicotiana, some ivy to fall over, and then some spikes to kind of give it some height. So that's my traditional annual planting.
You can see a lot of these I've changed, but in the back it was kind of like where it all started and then worked its way out and just got bigger and bigger. I'm not much for cutting the grass, and it becomes an obsession. Just keep building on it. And that's the front. And why don't we go to the backyard? Okay, we're in our backyard, and I got a couple things for my work. These are steam pipe handles, and the director of operations said that they were just going in a metal dumpster, so I was able to bring them home. Rosemary found this planter holder from Martha Stewart. Is it .com or
Something like that, and it just I loved the way it looked. Wanted to have it on the garage. So.
And right back here, from the Cornell Co-op, I've got a Russian iris coming up, pot of gold. That's Indian blanket with some nice color, and our coneflowers are coming out. We have a regular lilac, just a common lilac, and some herbs. Like, we have herbs in the front and back to keep the animals, the rabbits and the deer, from eating. We usually, with our hostas, we plant different herbs and whatnot.
And some onions and garlic as well.
Yeah, that seems to work really well too, to keep them from eating our hostas and all our other plants. This fountain, I repurposed stone that came out of our driveway. Last year we had our driveway dug up and redone by a contractor, and all this stone was underneath our driveway for some reason. So I asked them if I could have it, and they said okay. Put it off to the side, cleaned it all up, and then just got the liners and put this together. Didn't know really what I was doing, but just kind of just faked it till I made it. A woman I did gardening for in Fairport, she gave me that live edge piece of wood, so I made a seat out of it and then just shellacked it. We got our nice bird bath for the birds, and Rosemary made a really nice herb garden on the stand here that we use for our cooking, we use in our kitchen. That lilac, I'm not sure specifically the species, but it lasts longer than the usual ones here in Rochester. It does really well. It goes to almost into about the first week of June. It still has its flowers, which is really nice because we get to enjoy lilacs for a longer period of time. And we didn't have the decks. I built the decks. We just had a fixed window, gumwood window, and I put in the door and the deck, and kind of like in the front, it just went off from the edge and worked its way out over time.
Thanks so much for visiting our garden. We really appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Mary Howard, and welcome to my garden on Chapel Hill. I'd like to introduce you to some of the plantings that I've done that were originally native to the house. First of all is this fabulous grapevine that started growing along the fence, and I've just groomed it, and now I have some white lights in it, so at night it's really pretty when it's lit up with white lights. And then as you come down the steps, I have some azaleas and some begonias with Dusty Miller and some beautiful ferns, and then of course the black mulch really makes everything look great. Over here I have a lot of mint. As we know, mint likes to go crazy, so I have plenty of that. And then I also put some petunias in to fill in some of the gaps. I'm still growing the garden and trying to get more perennials and still figuring out where I want things to go. So that's a process I think all gardeners go through year after year. So down below, I'm trying to frame the waterfall area with the steps and the rocks with hostas, because I just love the really bright green color of these particular hostas, and it really makes the rocks and everything look great. So next we're going to head down to the hosta garden under the maple tree. So this is my fabulous maple tree that has been here probably for 100 years, and the stone was already around it, but there really wasn't anything inside here, and I thought because of all the shade I wanted to do a variety of hostas here. So I have a collection of hostas from neighbors, from friends, from family who sent me just the root system in the mail. It was amazing. And then I have some impatiens that are for the shade. So these have really taken off this year, and I'm really happy with it. I still have some things that I might want to do. Oh, I've got a fairy house area on the backside, which we're not going to show. It's in progress. It's in working progress, and my neighbor Anya is working on that for me. So, and the bird bath has always got birds in it. It's a great place to let them cool off, especially since the summer's been so hot. So I'm going to take you over to my patio to show you a fire pit and a bench that I built myself. Although I will say I did have some help with the bench, but the fire pit I did DIY. I went to Pinterest, which I find a ton of ideas on, and they had this exact fire pit, the stones and everything. And so I went ahead and built this in it took me about 4 hours. I already had the patio here, but it was kind of empty, and I have a sitting area on a patio up by the house, so this space was perfect for a campfire area. Then of course I've got some gardens on each side of that, which I've been filling in with perennials, and I have an oak leaf hydrangea, which I absolutely love. That's original to the house. I also have some hydrangea and some peonies back here. So I'm just going to kind of wait and see what's going to bloom next year, because I know because I don't have too much sun, I'm going to have to move some things. But I got it in the ground, and that was the big thing. So now I'm just enjoying the campfire and the patio and the bench. And I wanted to mention also the table over there, the tabletop separates from the legs, and it actually fits perfectly over my campfire when I'm not using it. And it serves as a table for food and drinks. So it makes a great way to entertain back here, even if I'm not using the campfire. I have a lot of things back in the back area of the yard that are natural to the house that I stopped cutting back. I realized there was a lot of raspberries, there's a lot of grapevine back here as well, and I always have a lot of branches falling, so I'm collecting a lot of branches and trying to keep everything organized. And then of course I'm composting my leaves. I get a ton of leaves every year, like most of us in Winona Woods does. And I have a lot of ivy area over here. I put some lights in there, so at night everything is solar, so at night that all lights up. And then as well as the grapevine that's growing along the fence. There's a lot of beautiful natural gardens here that I'm just looking forward to enhancing every year.